Platonic season two has just started. What was the initial breakdown for Katie, and did you add anything that to her that wasn't originally scripted?
I mean, it's funny because she's so like kind of off the wall. So I feel like when I first was getting the scripts and we did this big table read where we read through all the episodes because I don't think they really warned me what was happening. They were just like, "Oh, you have such great stuff. You have such funny stuff." And I sort of discovered it as I was reading the scripts. And so I feel like my storyline this year, or Katie's storyline this year, starts off kind of mild and it's like, okay, she's kind of there and she's giving advice and doing what she does. And then it just starts to go totally sideways. And she has a career that she's very proud of and working on, which I really enjoyed. And then the full-blown like hijinks with Seth and Rose. So like I wasn't really warned per se, like what was
Mhm.
the storyline, but I sort of found it as I went along. And I mean, I just loved doing it. I like to think I bring my own, like flavor to it. I think that I'm very lucky in that they for sure like write to me. Like they know that I like to like go big and be over the top and goofy. And so I think they do like write to that. So I think I add my own spin a little.
Kind of on those goofy moments. Something I loved was later in the season, she pours a buzz ball into a martini glass, and I feel like that is like the perfect summary of her character.
Oh,
Talk
totally.
a little bit about that scene.
Totally. Well, it's funny because I'm not a big drinker, so I didn't know about buzz balls. And I was actually like, "Oh, did we like create these for the show?" And they were like, I think Seth was like, "No, it's a drink. Like it's a buzz ball." And I was like, I don't know anything about this. I don't know any. And then we obviously you don't really drink on set, and so I just remember that the one that was a margarita had like margarita mix. Like they had changed prop
Mhm.
person had changed out obviously what was originally in the Buzzball for just straight up margarita mix. And so it was like so gross. But I was like, you know what? I have a feeling a buzzball is pretty intense. So I just used it. But I had that scene was so much fun. That was actually like I think day one I shot that after being not being Katie for 2 years. So that was kind of crazy. And then Seth and I, our friendship in season two is very different than season one, where we really almost don't have any. So we just like jumped right in. But I've known him for 25 years now. So there wasn't too much work that had to be done to like recapture the friendship.
No, it's very fun as the season goes on without spoilers. Like it's fun.
Thanks.
How would you describe the friendship between Katie and Sylvia?
I mean, I think it's like I would like to think that Katie is brutally honest. I mean, so it's a very honest friendship. I think, I know that Sylvia has like it's interesting because if you look at her friendships, she has di all these different voices, right? Because she has her husband and she has Seth and she has me. And so we all are, she'll turn to any one of us for like advice for different things. And then, but I do think that Katie vacillates between either being like terrible advice, I think, and sort of being like, whatever, like no one will know. Or actually being like really direct and being like, no, you're not going to do that. Like, don't fool me. Don't try to act like you were going to do that or be friends with his fiance. Like, let's just don't bullshit me. So it's a very no bullshit, but it's a very fun relationship, friendship.
And like you just said, she's very honest and upfront with Sylvia. Do you think she feels a responsibility to stop her making rash decisions in regard to Will and Jenna's relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I think she tries. I mean, I think about that scene, and it's aired, so no spoilers, but like where, Sylvia's in the bathroom and she's gonna tape. This is not so much, I mean, I think Katie doesn't know that it has to do with Will and his fiance, but where Sylvia's like, I'm gonna record them. Like, I think. Well, I guess it does, right? Because she's called Jenna a bitch and she's afraid that Wildcard has said it. She's like, I'm gonna leave. I know what I'm gonna do. Like, I'm gonna record them, then I'll know. And she's like, Katie's like, that's the worst idea. I mean, that's the worst possible idea. So I do think she's trying to help Sylvia avoid the pitfalls of Sylvia's own like meddling, like her need to meddle in Will's romantic life. She's trying to save her, but there's no hope. There's no hope.
Oh, yeah. So Rose and Seth are obviously comedically talented. Were you allowed to improv at all, or was it very sticking to the script with, your group scenes?
It's major improv. That group, Nick Stoller, Francesca Del Banco, they like I mean, they're not only encouraging of it, I mean, I think they expect it. I think because that's like who that group is, you're kind of not going to get, especially with Seth, I feel like it's like, you're not going to get away with just doing the straight script. So because they know that, they're like, in season one, I think I took liberties. Like, I went crazy. Like, I remember Nick Stoller being like, okay, you can stop. Like we would finish the scene and Rose and I would just continue to be like riffing and then eventually he'd be like, I think you got it. And then I would be like, I don't know, I got more in me. But it was so fun because I mean the scripts are so strong and the structure is so strong that season two, I pulled back a little bit because I was like, okay, Carla, you're just like not wasting everyone's time, but I'm enjoying myself. In the editing room, a lot of times you're going to come back to sort of the main script with a little bit of extra in there. So I was like, let me pull back. So I pulled back a little bit in season two, but there is always improvisation on this show, always.
Oh, I love that. It's like a very specific vein of comedy that is just so missed and it just plays out beautifully on screen.
Yeah.
We get little glimpses of Katie's life outside of the friendship this season. What can we expect for her story as the season progresses?
I mean, you see a little bit of her home life, which I thought was kind of cool. Not a ton, but just like a little glimpse at it. And again, Nick Stoller had sort of specific things about her being a single mother. And so there were some notes that he gave me that I really enjoyed because it sort of played into her dynamic with her son. And it's funny because even in watching the first couple episodes, every time that Trey Hale comes on screen, I'm like, oh, I miss him. And then I'm also like, this is so crazy that Andy and Katie were married, and it's like a very quick, we're not married anymore, and that's it. And like there's no discussion. I mean, it's fine. I think this is not the show for it. Like, but it is funny to me that I'm like, she was married. Like,
I kept
Katie
waiting. I was
was
like, do I need
married.
to rewatch season one? Did I get that wrong?
I know. It's like, wait, and then like I was just watching the scene with Will and Andy and all the guys at I don't know if they're at Lucky Penny, maybe, but I was like, oh, it's so funny because like Andy's fine. It doesn't mention it. You know what I mean? Like Andy's not like, well, ever since Katie dumped me. It's like, no, we just moved on. We moved on.
Katie has a podcast on the show, and so do you. Are there any other similarities you think you share with her?
Oh my God. There's that one and one other one, which I will say I took a lot of joy in telling Nick and Francesca. So we do the table read. Obviously I'd seen the script ahead of time. I knew about the podcast. And I was like, I know they don't know that I have a podcast. Like they're not that and that
Yeah.
that podcast is a very that's Bones, and that's a very different world. Always in my career have had sort of these two worlds, and one was like the Apatow comedy tree, and one was Bones, and those were sort of two separate entities. So it's like I know they don't know about it. So after the table read, I was like, I have a podcast, and they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, I have a podcast, and they thought it was the funniest thing in the world that because again there are similar. I am not Katie, but I am Katie, and I think they thought it was so funny that I have a podcast. And then the other one is just the stuff. I mean, this one I'm going deep, but so also there's a plot line, very brief, and it has more to do with Will than anything else, but about her mom moving her mom into assisted living. And I was like, hey, I've also gone through that. And I'm like, and to be honest, like I think that with comedy, I mean, most people I think would agree that it's funniest when it's sort of based in reality, right? So you heighten something that really happened, and often I think something that's like difficult or could be sort of dark, if you take that and you amp up. So, like there's a scene, and I don't want to give anything away, but where I'm with my mother, and we did a big improv on that of like her saying she wasn't going to move in and me saying stuff back to her. And like I had lived that
Mhm.
because that's generally how it goes. But what I did in that moment was take the insanity of that situation and just do like if you had the version to be as ridiculous as you could be, that's what I chose to do. And I just remember doing that scene and being like, I'm gonna say like the craziest things to her because in real life you're strategic and you're trying to be careful. And I was like, no, I'm gonna yell shit at her that is so wrong. I actually don't know what like how much of it they used, but pretty much the whole scene is improvised. And it was like one of these great moments where you're like, I love that I like took something that I experienced and I could like heighten it and make it insane. And it made for like a very funny scene, I think.
And it adds so much understanding too to other people who are going to watch it and have the experience. They'll know. They're like, I wish I could have said that. I wish
Yeah.
I could have done that
Yeah,
myself.
I wish I could have yelled that at my mother,
Yeah.
because you're like trying to be nice. But that was one of those ones where I was like reading the script because I remember even telling my husband, he was like, well, I don't think they know. And I'm like, no, I mean, I didn't really talk. It's like Rose knows. Rose knows everything. Like we're very close friends. But I'm like, no, there's no, because sometimes you'll read a script and you'll wonder, like, was this written because, and sometimes it is. Like I've had that before where like something is written in and you're like, well, that's my real life. Like I know you knew that and you put that in the script. But I was like, I don't think they know any of this stuff, like the podcast or the mom in the assisted living. So it was just a weird coincidence. It was like it was just funny, but maybe it was meant to be. I don't know.
Two really big things, so for sure meant to be.
Yeah.
So this season you have a lot of phone call or FaceTime scenes. When
Yeah.
you are filming those, is Rose reading lines with you or is someone else doing that?
She is for the most part, and I have to like give her a lot of credit for that because I think sometimes when actors are very famous or successful, they are not always going to be on the other side of a phone call or potentially off camera, like after hours or after they've finished their scenes. And I've for sure not only experienced that, I've been like, I was Elizabeth Moss on the other side of the phone call for Jonah Hill in Get Into the Greek, I think it was. And like, I did the whole phone call with him. And they were just like, she can't be there. Will you do the call with him? And you didn't hear me ever, but I was improvising with him and whatever. So I have to say, I always, and again, she's a very close friend of mine. So like, there's two sides, right? So there's one that's like, well, I hope my friend will be there for me. And the other part is professionally, I totally understand. Like she's doing other things and like she's not working that day. Why would she take that call? She always did, like if she could. If she was obviously on a plane or something, she didn't. But even she would even try. I mean, I remember her calling me and she didn't have reception, and she was like, I'm trying, and it just wasn't working. And so at a certain point, we were like, we have to stop, and I just have to have somebody in the room do it because we have to get through it. But man, she always was like, I'm calling in, and the day one, I showed up and I had a few of those with her, and it was so great. I don't know how I would have done it without her. Like, so yeah, she is. I'm sure you've heard anything you've ever heard about her is true. She's just next level, like an incredible person.
That's
Yeah.
so fun to know because I feel like that's usually not the case for those major FaceTime or just phone call scenes. You hear actors talk about, just doing it by themselves or just someone random on set stepping in. So that's really fun and adds to their friendship almost to know that.
Totally. I mean, and I think that I've had some people say to me too, like, oh, like your scenes with her, they're so like rich or whatever. There's just no question it's because of the real friendship I have with her. I mean, a lot of times I'm actually trying to make her laugh. Like, I want to say something ridiculous to make her laugh, but that kind of thing with her being on the other side of the phone call. And again, I think she would do that. I think that's part of her work ethic, but also as a friend, for her to be there, I think it adds and it's like made it playful. There's a scene where I'm on a treadmill, and again, I don't know how much of it stayed, but it's a FaceTime, and I was doing all this ridiculous stuff with this like handbag, and like, if she's not on the other side of that call, I don't think I feel as inspired to do it.
Mhm.
But for her, I kind of want to make her laugh, so I'm like goofing around, and so it definitely adds to it a lot.
Oh, yeah. Now the treadmill scene is the one that made me wonder, like, are they doing this together or because it's just
Yeah.
so perfect.
Totally. Oh, that's fine. Okay, I'm glad. Again, I'm finding out what's still there. So I never know. But so have you seen like the whole thing?
I did.
You've seen more than I have.
Oh,
That's
yeah. I
awesome.
couldn't stop myself. I was like, only need a few, but I just kept going. It's
Oh,
just
I'm glad. I'm
yeah.
glad to hear that.
Ends and then it just picks up so perfectly the next episode. It's like the perfect binge show. You just,
Oh, good.
oh yeah.
Good. And I think it like picks up heat as it goes along. Like
Oh.
the first couple episodes are fun and you're like reestablishing those relationships. But I think that I mean, and maybe I'm just partial, but I feel like those last couple episodes, because I had such fun stuff to do. I love those episodes so much. And I saw Nick Stoller 2 weeks ago at the premiere, and he was like, "Oh, I wish I could have screened the LA River episode because that's such a crazy." He's like, "I would have loved to have seen that with an audience." So I'm dying. That one for me, I'm like, I'm dying to see it.
Now that came out great.
Oh, good,
One of my
good.
favorites from the season.
Oh, good, good. I'm so glad. Good.
On that, what were some of your favorite moments from filming or scenes to shoot?
I mean, definitely LA River was like big. It's funny because sometimes when they try to take on something like that, where you're in a very strange location, and we were down in Long Beach and we were trying to double for the LA River, and first of all, I've never seen anything like it. Like, I mean, I generally work in TV, so I think that tends to be not that the budgets are lower, but big movies can do a lot of things. And I just had never seen an entire crew, a camera, the whole thing on like a barge essentially, and there was a crane, and I was like, uh, this was what you're like because this show is really very fun to make, and again, I've known everyone for so long. I've also known Nick Stoller for 25 years. We all did Undeclared together, so sometimes it's surreal and you feel like you're just making a show for your friends. And then moments like that, I was like, oh, this is legit. Like there were people in wetsuits. There were, and sometimes in those circumstances, you can get, or people can get a little like, oh, it's too hot or it's this, or like whatever. I was like, guys, this is incredible. Like, and again, some of that probably comes from like Seth is working his ass off 24/7, studio straight through Platonic. He's tired. I'm not. So I'm like, guys, this is so cool. Like, we are sitting in kayaks, we're together on the water. Like, there's a barge with a camera. Like, this is just insane. So for me, that, and then also, weirdly, all these years working, I have never been in I don't know if they call it like I think a process car is maybe a car that does. I don't know if that's a car that does or doesn't move, but like a car being towed, I had never done that. And I was in the car with Seth and Rose, and I was like, literally, they were laughing. I was like taking videos out the window of like the truck that's pulling us with the camera on it and of the scenery going by. And I was like, I've never done this before. And Seth was like, yes, you have. And I was like, I haven't. I'm telling you, I haven't. And he's like, of course, yes, you have. I was like, I really haven't. And he's like, Carla, I feel like I've done it with you. And I'm like, no, I really haven't. And weirdly, I didn't remember. So then I was telling Emily Deschanel about it. And she goes, Carla, you said in an early podcast episode that you'd never done that before. And I was like, I knew I'd never done it before. So weirdly, I talked about it on the podcast, on Bonehead's podcast, and then got to do it. And I think maybe those episodes aired out of like I had done it by the time I think that the Boneheads podcast dropped. But those are going to be some highlight memories, like career highlight memories.
Oh, that car scene just, or I guess there's a few different scenes were just so fun. Because,
Yeah.
like you said, Katie, we just see her in little spurts kind of early on, but then that episode really signifies a big change in her story and just getting to see you more in your comedy element. So it's very fun.
Oh, thanks. I'm so excited to see it. I just filming all of that, the penguin, all the stuff. Again, I don't want to give anything away, but I just was like, oh, I was here for it. I just love stuff like that. Like go big, go over the top, like let's be ridiculous, the windshield, like all that stuff. I just loved it so much.
So we love your Bonehead podcast that you just
Oh,
mentioned. Are you able to tease any upcoming guests, perhaps?
Well, we're not I don't want to say retooling it, but we're figuring out the next we did 40 episodes. And so we took sort of a summer hiatus and we are figuring out like production going forward. I will say I think that one of the things we learned is that the guests are the most fun. I mean, she and I are having a great time together. Um, yeah, Emily and I love each other and we see it as like just hanging out. But having the guests was it was like something I hadn't anticipated. Like I knew we were doing it. But then when you talk to these people that you hadn't, like a Tamara Taylor, even we fit Eugene Bird in like extra like Apple premiums episodes. And I was like, this is what it's about.
Where do you think we'd find Daisy and her child in this moment right now?
I mean, like before you even finished the sentence, I was like, we find out Lance Sweets isn't dead? No, because I'm like, like who is Daisy without Lance? Like, I think that was actually like part of my struggle on the show when he was killed. I was sort of like, but so much of who Daisy is, I mean, obviously she's loves her job and she loves work and she's so passionate about it and she loves Dr. Brennan, but I'm like, it was her relationship with Sweets that was like who she was. I don't know. That was very hard and it left me sort of floundering. I mean, I guess that I mean, it's funny you ask because I will say that doing Bonehead's podcast, obviously it comes up a lot that and I think I'm bringing it up a lot. Like, I'm like, reboot? Like, Bones reboot? Bones reboot? I bring it up as much as I can. Because I will say, everyone that we interview, everyone we talk to, has the most positive things to say. It was such a special experience. There's such, everyone, it's like very near and dear to them. It's meaningful. It's meaningful to the fans. So of course it comes up when we do interviews. And it's funny because like I would say across the board, everybody says yes, that they would be into a reboot. Um, Emily has said yes. I've said yes. Like again, then I started to bring it up a lot. Like I'd be like, would you do a reboot? I like don't think it's an impossibility. I mean, after we started the podcast, then I know there were some like news clips and things mentioning it, and then they would start to ask like Emily or even the producers of the show like out in the world, Barry Jacobson, Hart Hansen, and they were like, "Yeah, we're like open to it." And I'm like, maybe that's what's going to come out of this. Like maybe the podcast is going to reignite everyone's like passion for the show. I think everyone really misses it. They needed the break because 12 years is a crazy amount of time. But I do think it's stirring it up a little bit. I don't know.
Well, I need it. An era where you have all these other kind of similar shows getting their reboot moment. This one would just, it's so fun because again, it's been so long to kind of get a glimpse of where they are now. Also, just how much has changed too for what work would be looking like for them. Like there's just so much to really play with. Even if it's just a limited, season or few seasons coming back, it's fun to step into the world again. So I
I
need
think I agree with you. I very coincidentally, my neighbor is on Criminal Minds, and I guess we were first started kind of hanging out right before they started their like reboot. And I was like, kind of like, this is incredible. Like that you could take a show that was on for such a long time, but then went down, and I don't know how long they were down. And then they pick back up and they're like doing better than ever. And they just keep making it. I mean, I think what are they making? Like four, 5 seasons? Like they're still going, right? So I'm like, I think it like makes sense. I mean, I guess the question would be like, where are Booth and Brennan and where are the interns? Because like, by the end, I think I finally got my PhD after like 9 years or whatever. But I am like, basically you'd want the same format of them solving cases together. And I don't know. I mean, I guess the missing piece is David. We have not had him on yet. It's still definitely a goal to have him on the podcast. And Emily is the one talking to him about it. So, I'd be curious to hear what he has to say. I feel like in the press, he even said once or twice, like, maybe, like, I might be open to it. And I was like, oh my God, like, maybe this could
it.
really happen, right? But I do think there's more story to tell. I mean, in rewatching the show, I have truly gained a new appreciation for it. So when you're working on it, you're close to it and you're like, and also I came in and out, so I was very attached to it as like a family, but I didn't, I wasn't watching the show. And so now I'm watching it and I'm like, this is really good. Like
Ooh.
this is really addictive and like funny and smart. And God, the like actors that are in it are so well cast. And then the guest cast is so crazy. I was just thinking about Michael B. Jordan being on there. Like I'm like, Aaron Paul, like, Betty White, like all these like crazy people, Ryan O'Neal, yeah. So I think there's so much room to keep doing it. I really truly believe that.
Well, for sure. And I feel like too in the era of streaming, you kind of get to play around a little bit more with kind of I think on Criminal Minds they're cussing now, which is fun. You get to kind of play around with different
Oh.
like that. So I do think there is a world for a Bones reboot. We need it.
Totally. And also like it's funny you say that because I'm like, I don't know that the show would want to go grosser, but you could. I mean, and also times are different now. I think like what people have been exposed to, and that definitely was part of the like fun of the show and playfulness is like how gross can they get, like I don't know that we kept it up, but we started doing like we were starting like a how gross is this body, like Emily and I were doing like on the podcast, and then I don't think we ended up keeping it up because sometimes you'd have an episode where the body just was like bones and there was like, but God, I mean, to imagine what they could do
Oh
now
my God. And
and on streaming.
yeah.
Oh, I
It's
wish it would come back. I still feel like I'm like maybe that is what's going to come from it. I don't know.
Do you have any personal favorite episodes that you remember filming or moments that really stuck with you?
Like from Bones? God. I mean, honestly, it was for sure anything with John Daly. Like I just loved him so much. And again, there's that like talk about a chemistry thing. I mean, first of all, I'd known him since, like, I'd met him when he was, I think, 18, because I had done Judd Apatow's second show, Undeclared, after Freaks and Geeks. So those worlds kind of merged a little bit. And so I'd met him back then, but like didn't know him well. But just was so charmed by him and like definitely had like a little crush on it. Like he's just was the sweetest guy. And so I loved playing that role, playing the perky girlfriend and like too peppy girlfriend, I guess. And so yeah, I mean, I have memories of like being on New York Street with him, at Fox, which to me again similar to the like shooting the kayak or like any of that is like that's iconic. That is iconic. Hollywood is shooting on a New York street on a lot. So shooting that stuff with him, the scene where he proposes was like a mixed bag because we didn't have a lot of time. It was like a Friday night and Chad Lowe was directing and I remember like we were just crunched for time and like I'm up on a ladder and he's down on the ground and it like but I wanted it to be, you have these ideas of it being this like momentous and they were like, okay, good, we got it. And I was like, no, no, this is big. Like he's proposed. So that one is like very memorable for me, but I like wanted it to be even more. Giving birth was super memorable. I really had my daughter. And I was pregnant and that's what they had written it in. So I had her and waving to my daughter, who I like to call Lance Jr. because she's who I was pregnant with. But I was shooting and I didn't know that they were going to kill Lance off. So I was pregnant, but I hadn't told them. And they were like, okay, can she come back and like, do 2 episodes? And I was like, oh, you have to tell them I'm like very pregnant. And because I thought I would get it in under the gun. And so that's why I'm so write it in. I thought, oh, that's unusual. Huh? Like just like that. Like she's pregnant. And then I found out why. It's because those momentous episodes. So I went back to work and then I ended up going to labor. So then I went back to work like right away. Like I went back like 11 days later. It was crazy. But soon after that, I shot the giving birth to, and it was like that is like art imitating life. When you're like, now I have to pretend to do it, but I just did this probably like at that point, less than a month, 3 weeks or a month earlier. I was like, this is very strange. So that was super memorable. And anytime we dressed up. like cowboy. We had like a cowgirl episode where we all went to a bar. We were all dressed in like cowgirl outfits. And then for the wedding, for Booth, and we were all in those like Victorian, I don't know why, but very memorable, very fun.
Always, and again, it's fun to hear on the podcast. You guys relive stuff too. It's amazing.
We're having fun. Yeah, we're having fun reliving it. I think it's the right amount of time has gone by. It was intense, an intense job, as you probably heard her say, but she now it's like really fun to go back and to see everybody again. That's been like the one thing I didn't answer before that when my mom came up was I think what we want to do is pull up, like we were waiting on like John Francis Daly and all the Swin turns because we are trying to do them in chronological order. And I think that it's just so fun to have them on. I think we just have to bring them up earlier and like have them watch another episode, or maybe it's just an interview, but it's like we're waiting, and I don't want to wait, 3 seasons to have, Eugene on or, any of them, like Michael Grant Terry or anybody. So I think we need to pull it up sooner.
Of
But
course, people would love that.
yeah, I would too. Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of just as a final question, what would you like to say to people who are fans and supporters of you and your work?
Thank you. Thank you. And like thanks for hanging in there. I feel like I've like been very, very lucky in my career. But sometimes there's big gaps in the thing, and when I'm doing stuff. And I feel like I'm just so grateful that people are like along for the ride. And I'm always like you like talking to me about Platonic, but then also knowing the podcast and being a fan of Bones, it's like that's one of those moments where I'm like, I'm really grateful for that because I'm like I think that I compartmentalize each job a little bit. Like, okay, well, people see me on Platonic, so they know me from Platonic, and then I like meet somebody and I'm like, oh no, you like know that I did other things and like you understand the work I've put in and the choices I'm making and the different characters I'm building, which is my favorite thing to do. So yeah, just thank you and please keep watching what I do so I can keep doing it.